Now, if you're familiar with Transport Fever 2, you know exactly what logistics is supposed to look like, specifically for cargo and passengers. All of us Cities Skylines fans know that Cities Skylines 1 just wasn't that. Could you build long stretches of track that cut across your map and deliver goods from one point to another? Well, sure, but it really didn't give you the ability to deep dive into the logistics side of things. With Cities Skylines 2 releasing in October, the hope for better logistics and transportation is through the roof. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the dev diary that they just released for Cities Skylines 2 public and cargo transportation. This is Dreamscraper. Let's go. In the development diary, they begin by talking about the different types of public transportation that we're going to have. Of course, you're going to see buses, taxis, trains, trams, metro, water transportation, and air transportation. But how exactly is this different from Cities Skylines 1? In Cities Skylines 1, the mechanics to creating a public transportation line was pretty basic. Create a stop, connect the stops, and complete the line. And there you have it. A perfectly functional public transportation line. Now, who actually used that line is going to be the next question. I think in Cities 1, it's a bit up for debate on what exactly is the best type of public transportation. But essentially, I think it just comes down to how fast can Sim get from point A to point B. Looking back at Cities Skylines 2, we learned last week in the dev diary that the Sims don't always follow the same exact way of travel. For some, like adults, yes, they are going to take time into account. That is the #1 factor. However, for teens, money is going to play the largest part. And for the elderly, it's going to be comfort over anything. Now, I don't know about you, but being crammed on a small metro line or stuck sitting beside a smelly passenger on a bus isn't exactly what I call comfortable. But I digress. That being said, in CS2, I think there's going to be some mechanic and thought that goes into where you place your lines and how often you place them. For example, teens are much more likely to utilize the transit system if you make it cheap for them. So maybe create a school bus line that is free or at least pretty cheap. Target neighborhoods and homes and have the lines end at a school. I would always try to do this in Cities Skylines 1, and I don't think I ever had success that I wanted. Knowing that the AI in CS2 is focused on the specific type of passenger, you can really focus on the locations and the people who will be utilizing that line. Also, maybe don't put a bus stop right outside of a retirement center. When it comes to adults, I think it's important that you create a time-sensitive transit line. For the school line, you can have 100 stops. As long as it ends up at the school in the location that they need to be, and it's free, the teens are probably going to use it. The adults, however, want to get to work, get to the shops, and get home as quick as they possibly can. Therefore, I would recommend highly targeting those specific locations without deviating in different directions. If that means creating a tunnel to go through the mountain instead of around the mountain, then I think that would be your best bet to get more Sims and adults to utilize that line. Another change that the developers mentioned in the highlights is that trains and subways now require a train yard and a subway yard. You might ask, what exactly is the advantage of this? Well, I would say that it adds another sense of realism to the game. The fact that we now need to maintain our trains does bring me back to the game Transport Fever 2, where this is an essential part of the game. After so many years of in-game time has passed, your trains get old and depreciate. You're able to repair them through the maintenance yard and send them out again, or replace them with new trains. If you're a Cities Skylines player who loves the management side of the game, I think that this will be a cool added feature. The next thing that the devs talked about was cargo trains and cargo terminals. The diary says, once a cargo terminal is built, companies can use it as a storage point for incoming and outgoing cargo. Again, this is another feature that we see in Transport Fever 2. You can manually send a certain type of good to a cargo terminal where it can sit and wait for a cargo train to come and pick it up to take it to its next or final destination. I want to highlight on one specific line within the diary. It says, even with no cargo lines, companies ordering resources can use the station's storage facilities to drop off and pick up resources and goods. Now, that second part is basically how Cities Skylines 1 worked. You really had no control over what went in and what went out of a cargo terminal. You could influence it by putting a cargo terminal near a specific type of industry. However, you didn't create a line from that industry to the cargo terminal. You just kind of hope that it happened. However, the first part of this line is what interests me. It says even with no cargo lines. So does that imply that there will be cargo lines? Well, yes, it does. Again, this is just like in Transport Fever 2, where you specifically create the lines. As you continue to read on in the dev diary, they talk about stops and stations, and lines specifically for cargo. Once stops and stations have been placed and connected with roads and tracks, you can create transport lines between the stops and stations. So basically, what this is saying is, let's say you have an industrial area of forestry, and you want to move the cargo specifically via train. You can place a train station next to your forestry industry, and then another train station next to the desired location, such as a factory or facility that would require timber, connect the two stations with tracks, and then create a line. So what it doesn't say is, can you specify specifically on the type of good that you want to transport? I would assume that that's going to be an added feature. As you continue reading, they go on to talk about other types of cargo, specifically ships and planes. Essentially, they work the same as trains. You can create lines and ship the goods via those lines. The main differences between the different types of cargo are the speed at which they can travel and the quantity of goods that they can carry. For instance, cargo ships, they're able to carry large amounts of cargo, but that comes at a cost because they travel extremely slow. Planes, on the other hand, can travel very fast. However, they're not able to carry as many goods. For the most part, I think this is how it worked in Cities Skylines I. However, I think that the functionality and the AI is just going to work a lot better in Cities Skylines II. They do highlight the fact that you are going to be able to transfer goods in and out of your city and state the importance of it. This is something that was utilized in Cities Skylines I. However, the mechanics were pretty clunky and it didn't always work how you wanted it to. It required warehouses that seemed to never fill or never empty. With the ability to create lines, I think that we're going to be able to work around this in Cities Skylines II by making sure that goods are being shipped to and from our warehouses. Last but not least, we have the transportation overview panel. In terms of functionality, not much has changed from Cities Skylines I. However, with the added line features for cargo, this is going to be included. Compared to Cities Skylines I, it's much cleaner, organized, and easy to read. I think it's going to be an essential tool to manage in your city cargo lines and your public transportation lines. Probably my favorite panel is going to be the lines panel, where it shows information about the lines such as their length, number of stops, and current passengers, as well as their line usage percentage. This is also very reminiscent of Transport Fever 2. However, I think it's more modern and a lot cleaner. They do make it a point to remind us about changing the price of public transportation lines through the new panels. Again, going back to the beginning, this is going to affect who is going to travel on those lines and help Sims determine whether they're going to use the public transportation or their personal vehicles. Alright guys, that's pretty much going to do it for this one. I'm super excited for this game to come out and explore all of its new features. Normally on my channel, I focus on a highly detailed city where I don't typically focus on the mechanics of the game. However, I love playing Cities Skylines and I love playing in different ways. For me, it's fun to detail cities as if I'm making art, but sometimes I just want to get back to the mechanics of the game and play it for how it was designed. And for this reason, I really can't wait for Cities Skylines 2. If you're excited for Cities Skylines 2, drop a like, I would really appreciate it. And I hope to see you in the next one.